Hey there. Welcome back. Today, we're diving into something kind of unique, a financial plan that actually fits on one page.
A one-page financial plan.
Yeah, you shared some excerpts from Carl Richards' book, The One-Page Financial Plan,
Yeah.
and I'm already intrigued. It's all about simplifying your finances and getting like laser focused on what truly matters to you.
You know what's really refreshing about this book is that it doesn't start with the usual
Right.
budgeting spreadsheets or investment strategies.
Yeah.
Instead, it dives straight into the why behind your money.
Okay.
It encourages you to really ask yourself, why is money important to me?
That's interesting because it's not just about picturing that dream vacation or
Nice.
a fancy car. Right.
Right.
It feels deeper than that.
Exactly. It's about uncovering your core values and understanding how money can help you live a more fulfilling life.
Okay.
Richards uses a great example of a couple, Sarah and Mark, who were working long hours to save for the future. But during a financial planning session, they had this aha moment.
Yeah.
They hadn't truly connected their financial goals
Okay.
with their desire to start a family.
So this story about Sarah and Mark, it
Yeah.
really highlights something crucial, right? It's
Yeah.
not just about crunching numbers. It's
Yeah.
about connecting your financial goals
Yeah,
to the life you want to live.
absolutely. You're working towards financial freedom for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe it's starting a family like Sarah and Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's traveling the world or pursuing a passion.
Yeah.
Money is just a tool to help you get there.
So how do we actually start exploring this why?
Right.
Should we just sit down and meditate on the meaning of money?
Well, a little introspection never hurts, but there's a more practical approach.
Okay.
Richards suggests taking a close look at how you're already spending your time and money.
Mm-hmm.
They can be really powerful indicators of your values,
Okay.
even if they reveal some inconsistencies.
Our actions speak louder than our intentions. For
Precisely. And those inconsistencies can be eye-opening.
Yeah.
They can help you identify areas where you might be out of alignment and spark important conversations about making changes that truly reflect your priorities.
And these conversations, especially with a partner or family, can sometimes be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Money can be a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
Richards even shares an example of a couple, Bob and Sue,
Yeah.
who had different ideas about travel after years of marriage.
Absolutely. That highlights the importance of open and honest communication.
Okay.
It's so crucial to approach these conversations with empathy and a no shame, no blame attitude.
Right.
It's about understanding each other's perspectives and finding common ground, not pointing fingers about past decisions.
It's also about recognizing each other's contributions, even if they go beyond a traditional paycheck, right?
Absolutely. Richards points out that contributions to a household are more than just who brings home a salary.
Right.
It's about valuing the time and energy invested in raising children, managing the household, and supporting each other's dreams.
All right, so we've delved into our why and maybe had some tough but necessary conversations.
Right.
Now it's a time to figure out where we want to go with our finances.
Right.
Set some goals.
And this is where Richards' approach gets really interesting.
Okay.
He encourages us to embrace the fact that we can't predict the future perfectly and think of goal setting as making educated guesses.
Okay.
He even uses this quote from Alice in Wonderland. "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?"
Yeah.
And the Cheshire Cat replies, "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to."
You know, it's like planning a road trip.
Right.
You need a destination in mind, even if the exact route isn't set in stone.
Right.
That's where guessing your destination comes in.
Exactly. Let's say you want to retire early.
Okay.
You might not know the exact cost, but you could start with a guess, maybe $50,000 per year. That gives you a target to work towards.
Okay.
Richards also shares the story of Henry and Elizabeth, who wanted to take their kids on a 6-month RV trip to homeschool them on the road.
Wow.
It seemed impossible at first,
Yeah.
but they broke it down into smaller steps,
Okay.
made some educated guesses about the costs, and actually made it happen.
So we're taking those big dreams and turning them into concrete goals with at least a rough estimate of the costs?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Richards gives us a simple 3-step process to do just that.
Okay.
First, list everything you'd like to do in the future. Don't hold back. Be ambitious. Second, start putting some numbers to those aspirations. How much would it cost to travel the world for a year, buy that vacation home, or whatever else is on your list?
Yeah.
Be realistic, but don't let fear limit your vision.
Okay. And what's step number 3?
Prioritize.
Okay.
This is where you connect back to your why. Does this goal truly align with your values and contribute to the life you envision?
Right.
If not, adjust accordingly. You might find that some goals naturally rise to the top, while others might need to be revised or put on hold.
That's such great advice. It's about being intentional with our goals and making sure they reflect what truly matters to us. But after all that, how do we figure out where we currently stand financially?
Right.
It can be a bit daunting to face reality sometimes.
It can be. But remember Richard's story about Steve, the CFO.
Okay.
Even though he managed finances for a large organization, he was a bit fuzzy on his own personal finances. So Richards asked him to create a simple personal balance sheet.
Okay.
A chart of assets, what you own, and liabilities, what you owe.
Creating a balance sheet seems pretty straightforward. You list your bank accounts, investments, the value of your home on one side, and then credit card debt, your mortgage balance, and any other loans on the other.
Right.
But why do so many people avoid this step?
Facing our financial reality can trigger a lot of emotions, especially if we've made mistakes in the past. Richards talks about a woman who had a $6,000 student loan that ballooned to $34,000 because she just avoided dealing with it.
That's a perfect example of how avoidance can actually make things worse in the long run. But creating a balance sheet is really about taking that first step towards taking control.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be surprisingly empowering. Steve, the CFO, was actually in a much better financial position than he thought once he saw everything laid out.
Yeah.
It gave him a clear picture of his financial health and allowed him to move forward with confidence.
So it's about facing our financial situation head on, even if it's a bit uncomfortable, and remembering it's about progress, not perfection.
That's the key.
Yeah.
We all make financial missteps along the way.
Right.
It's about having a no shame, no blame attitude and focusing on moving forward.
That's such an important point. It's about learning from our past and using those lessons to make more informed decisions in the future. But sometimes, even after we've created a plan, we struggle with sticking to it. It's so easy to get caught up in impulse purchases or swayed by the latest financial trends.
It absolutely is. That's where the concept of mindful spending comes in.
Okay.
Richards highlights the perspective of Jesse Macham, the founder of You Need a Budget.
Okay.
He says that budgeting shouldn't feel like punishment.
Right.
It should be about awareness. It's about understanding where your money's actually going so you can make sure it aligns with your values.
I get it. Budgeting isn't always fun.
Right.
But it's not about restricting yourself. It's about making sure your money goes where your values are.
Think of it like this. Every time you spend money, you're making a choice. Are you choosing convenience over experiences? Material possessions over quality time with loved ones? Being mindful of your spending helps you align those choices with what truly matters. The book even tells the story of Dallas and Melissa Hartwig, authors of It Starts With Food. They tracked their spending. Were horrified by how much they were spending on food.
It's easy to judge, but were they actually overspending?
Not necessarily. They realized that even though their food spending was high, it reflected their passion for healthy eating. It was a core value for them, and their spending habits were in alignment. So it's not always about cutting back. It's about making sure our spending habits reflect what's truly important to us.
What if traditional budgeting just isn't working for you?
Richards suggests a spending cleanse inspired by his friend Steve Fellows. It's about consciously avoiding spending money for a set period, like a few days or even weeks, on anything that's not absolutely essential.
A spending cleanse. It sounds intense.
It can be, but it can also be a powerful way to hit the reset button on your spending habits. It helps you break free from those mindless purchases and gain clarity on where your money is going.
He also suggests gamifying budgeting by focusing on minimizing the number of transactions each day.
Right. Exactly. It might sound counterintuitive, but reducing the number of purchases you make, regardless of the amount, can actually lead to more mindful spending overall.
It's like that tiny habits concept, right? Starting small and building from there. Sometimes those small changes can have a surprisingly big impact.
Absolutely. And that applies to saving as well.
Speaking of saving, Richards emphasizes saving as much as you reasonably can.
Right.
But what does reasonably even mean? It feels so subjective.
It is. That's why connecting back to your why is so important. Saving reasonably means finding a balance between enjoying life today and building a secure future for yourself. It's about making conscious choices that allow you to do both.
But even when we know we should be saving, it can be a struggle. Like sometimes that new gadget just calls your name.
It's true. Richards even mentions a study where almost half of Americans couldn't come up with $2,000 in 30 days if they needed to.
Wow.
This disconnect often comes from the difficulty we have in connecting with our future selves.
So how do we bridge that gap between our present selves, who might want that new gadget today, and our future selves, who will need that money down the line?
Well, Richards offers some practical tips. One is automating your savings.
Okay.
It takes the decision fatigue out of it.
Yeah.
Another is making a conscious effort to save any windfalls you get, like tax refunds. He also talks about implementing a 72-hour test to curb impulse buying.
That 72-hour test is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's such a simple but effective way to pause and really consider if that purchase is something you truly need or want.
It really is. And remember, this isn't about depriving yourself.
Right.
It's about making choices that align with your values and goals. It's about saying yes to the things that truly matter and being okay with delaying gratification on the things that don't.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking there's like a shortcut to financial security, like finding that one magic investment that'll make you rich quickly.
Richards actually challenges that get-rich-quick mentality. He emphasizes that true investing is about making informed decisions for the long haul, not chasing quick wins or relying on speculation. It's about building a strong financial foundation for your future.
And that brings us to another big topic, borrowing money.
Right.
It's something that can feel really loaded, especially with
Yeah.
the rising cost of living and the pressure to keep up with everyone else. But Richards actually asks a really interesting question. Is taking on debt ever a good investment?
And the answer might surprise you. It's actually yes. There are definitely times when borrowing can be a strategic move, but it requires careful thought and planning.
He shares the story of Chris, who was frustrated with his strict no-debt approach, while his partner was doing really well using leverage to invest, at least until the 2007 market crash brought things crashing down.
That's a great example of how those short-term gains fueled by debt can create long-term instability.
Yeah.
And when it comes to borrowing, the biggest decision most people face is whether or not to buy a house.
It's often called the American dream, and for many people, it is their biggest investment.
And yet, Richards challenges the common myth that buying a house is always the best investment.
Okay.
He points out that historically, housing prices have grown at a rate similar to inflation, averaging around 3% per year.
So why do so many people still believe it's the best investment?
It's often because it's the only investment they held for a really long time. This can create a false impression that their returns were exceptional, when really they were pretty average. Richards encourages us to really think critically about the decision to buy a house.
Okay.
And ask some important questions.
Like what?
Questions like, why are you buying in the first place? Does owning a home actually align with your goals and values? Are you really prepared for the long-term commitment that comes with home ownership? And what assumptions are you making about how housing prices will change in the future?
He also talks about Rick, who intentionally saved for a house while renting and ended up avoiding a lot of the problems that come with owning a home during a turbulent market.
Exactly. It's about making informed decisions based on your individual circumstances, not what society tells you to do or what's happening in the market at any given moment. And remember, renting doesn't have to be throwing money away.
Right.
It can give you flexibility and, in some cases, allow you to save more effectively.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. Figuring out your why, setting meaningful goals, taking stock of your current financial situation, thinking critically about spending and saving, and approaching debt strategically.
Right.
Now let's talk about investing.
And Richards draws a clear line between investing and speculating.
Okay.
He actually shares his own story of losing $10,000 in InfoSpace stock.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty powerful reminder of what can happen when you chase after hot stock tips or try to time the market.
He lost almost everything on that, right?
He did. His $10,000 investment ended up being worth only about $81.
Oh my goodness.
It's a tough lesson, but it highlights the importance of understanding the difference between real investing and the hype that's often pushed by the financial media.
He calls it the carnival.
Right.
All those distractions that can lead us to make emotional decisions, often with terrible results.
Exactly. He advocates for a more scientific approach to investing.
Okay.
Something based on data and research, not gut feelings or speculation.
Yeah.
He calls it the science of investing.
So what exactly are the principles of the science of investing?
Richards highlights three key principles: diversification, keeping costs low, and understanding the relationship between risk and reward.
Let's break those down. What does he mean by diversification?
It's about spreading your investments across different types of assets, industries, and geographic regions.
Okay.
It's about not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
This reduces your exposure to the ups and downs of any single investment.
He uses that great comparison of 4 different portfolios, each with a different level of diversification, right?
He does, and the results are really striking.
Yeah.
The portfolio that was the most diversified, which included a mix of stocks and bonds, had the most consistent returns and significantly less risk.
So diversification isn't just about chasing the highest returns.
Right.
It's about finding a balance between risk and reward.
Right.
It's about building a portfolio that can handle the ups and downs of the market and still reach your financial goals.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to keeping costs low, it's all about simple math.
Yeah.
The more you pay in fees and expenses, the less money you actually get to keep in the long run. Richards points out that fees are one of the most reliable predictors of how well a mutual fund will perform.
So paying attention to those expense ratios and fees when you're choosing investments is crucial.
It really is.
Yeah.
Even small differences in fees can make a big impact on your returns over time.
And finally, what about the relationship between risk and reward?
This principle acknowledges that investments with higher potential returns usually come with higher risk.
Right.
It's about what Richards calls compensated risk, meaning you want to make sure the potential rewards justify the amount of risk you're taking on.
And he breaks down different types of risk as well.
He does. He explains things like equity risk,
Okay.
which is the inherent volatility of the stock market. He talks about small company risk, since smaller companies tend to have more unpredictable ups and downs compared to larger established companies. And he explains the difference between value investments and growth investments.
Okay, so we've explored the key principles of investing scientifically. Diversify, minimize costs, and understand the relationship between risk and reward.
Right.
But even with a solid plan in place, it can be emotionally challenging to stick with it, especially when the market is going crazy.
Absolutely. Even when we know intellectually that market fluctuations are normal, it's hard to resist the urge to panic and sell everything when things are down, or to get caught up in the frenzy and chase hot stocks when the market is booming.
Richards uses a great analogy here. He compares the feeling of holding on to certain stocks, even when it doesn't make financial sense, to clinging to stuffed animals.
It's such a good analogy. It reminds us that we can get emotionally attached to our investments,
Right.
and that can cloud our judgment.
Yeah.
And it's exactly why he emphasizes the importance of working with a good financial advisor, someone who can act as a behavioral coach and help you stay on track and avoid those emotional pitfalls.
He calls those advisors the secret society of real financial advisors.
And he points out some of their key qualities.
Yeah.
They genuinely focus on you and your goals. They ask insightful questions. They're completely transparent about their fees and any potential conflicts of interest.
Right.
And they always put your interests first.
He also says it's important to ask potential advisors some specific questions about how they get paid and what their conflicts of interest might be.
Right. Transparency is key in any financial relationship.
So we've covered a lot about having a financial plan. But even with the best plan, we're human and we make mistakes. What are some things we can do to set ourselves up for success and avoid making those common financial blunders?
Richards talks about setting up guardrails to help prevent bad behavior and keep you on track.
Guardrails, what does he mean by that?
It's about creating systems and habits that make it harder to stray from your plan. One of the most important guardrails is limiting your exposure to the constant stream of financial news and all those expert opinions.
That's easier said than done these days, right? We're bombarded with financial information from every direction.
It is. But constantly checking the market or listening to those financial pundits can really trigger emotional reactions and lead to impulsive decisions.
Right.
It's about filtering out the noise and focusing on your long-term goals.
So it's about tuning out the carnival and trusting the process.
Exactly. Another important guardrail is to automate your good behavior as much as possible.
We talked about automating savings earlier.
Right.
But this applies to other financial decisions too, like rebalancing your investment portfolio, paying bills on time, and contributing to your retirement accounts.
So automating those decisions takes the temptation to procrastinate or make impulsive choices out of the equation. It helps you stick to your plan even when you're feeling emotional.
Exactly. And he also stresses the importance of reflecting on past mistakes and actually learning from them.
Yeah.
Have you ever panicked and sold investments during a market downturn?
Yeah.
Or maybe got caught up in the hype and chased after hot stocks when the market was soaring?
Oh, yeah. Who hasn't?
Right. We all have those moments.
Yeah.
But reflecting on those experiences and understanding the emotions behind them can help us avoid making those same mistakes again.
It's about being honest with ourselves, about our behavioral patterns.
Exactly. And finally, remember your deeper yes.
Connect back to the values and goals that are driving your financial decisions. Ask yourself, why are you saving and investing in the first place?
Right.
What kind of life are you working towards?
That's such a powerful reminder. It's about focusing on the big picture and not getting sidetracked by those day-to-day market fluctuations or shiny new things you might want to buy. It's about making choices that align with the life you want to live, not the life that society tells you to live.
It really is about crafting a financial plan that's both practical and personally meaningful.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's definitely changed how I think about financial planning. One thing that really stuck with me was Richard's emphasis on actually finding joy in the process.
Right.
He even talks about how much time he saves by not constantly checking his portfolio or obsessing over every little market move.
He literally calculated how much time he saves. It was something like 4 to 6 hours every week. And here's the kicker. By letting go of that need to micromanage his investments and just trusting his plan, his returns actually improved.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Think of what you could do with an extra 4 to 6 hours a week. It's a good reminder that financial planning doesn't have to be this constant source of stress.
It can actually be a path to more freedom and peace of mind, freeing you up to focus on the things that truly matter.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We
Yeah.
talked about understanding your why, setting goals that align with your values,
Right.
getting a clear picture of your current financial situation, and making smart decisions about spending, saving, and investing. But perhaps the most important takeaway is that it's all about aligning your financial choices with what you truly value and finding a way to enjoy the journey along the way.
It's about moving beyond those limiting beliefs we often have about money and embracing a more holistic approach to financial well-being.
I love how Richards makes it clear that this isn't about keeping up with the Joneses or accumulating some arbitrary amount of wealth.
Right.
It's about designing a life that's truly meaningful to you.
And that's what makes the idea of a one-page financial plan so powerful. It's a simple yet effective way to take control of your finances and start creating a life that's aligned with your values.
Well, I think we've thoroughly unpacked Carl Richards' The One-Page Financial Plan, and this has definitely been a thought-provoking deep dive. What stood out to you most? What will you do with all the time and energy you've freed up now that you have a solid plan in place?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll discover some new, deeper yeses waiting to be explored.
I can't wait to find out.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.